Hello everybody, and welcome to Command Point. Once again, I am Shane, of course, and I am here with the first ever episode of the Fire Team Breakdown series that I'm going to be doing. Obviously, Ryan and I are going to be uploading the Kill Team faction deep dives, which as of right now, the Tyranid one is up, and we're getting a lot of positive reception from it, and I'm really happy for that. A separate thing that I'm going to be doing is breaking down individual fire teams and basically just talking about how good I think they are, what their strengths are, and yeah, I'm also going to be taking nominations from Patreon supporters over on our Patreon. If you're interested in that, go check that out. This episode, the Plague Marine Fire Team, was nominated by Alec over on Patreon, so thank you very much, Alec. And yeah, let's get into this because these guys are very interesting. So, first and foremost, you can take up to 2 Plague Marine fire teams. They are one of the 2 available ones to Death Guard, including Poxwalkers, but we're not going to talk about those today. We're talking about Plague Marines. So, a Plague Marine fire team has 2 Plague Marines, but your leader, if you take the leader on an individual fire team, then you get a 3rd operative, which is your Plague Marine champion. And spoiler alert, you are always going to have a Plague Marine champion in your Death Guard kill teams because that's the only leader that they can take right now. Let's take a look at this. So you can take a Plague Marine Warrior, which is basically just a generic Plague Marine. We're going to look at the data sheet and the weapons in a moment, but let's just go over all the options right now. A Plague Marine Gunner, which can take a Melta, Plague Belcher, or Plasma. A Plague Marine Heavy Gunner, which can take a Blade Launcher or Plague Spewer. A Fighter, which can take this one has a few different options. You can go Bolt Pistol with the Bubotic Axe and Mace of Contagion, which is, I'm going to talk about it later, but this is my favorite option because you get 2 separate weapons and you can kind of adapt to different situations depending on what weapon is better. You can alternatively go Bolt Pistol and Flail, or Bolt Pistol and Plague Cleaver, or Bolt Pistol and Plague Knives, which, yeah, all different. And then you've got the Plague Marine Iconbearer. It is important to note, however, that you cannot have a gunner, heavy gunner, or fighter in the same fire team. So let's say you're taking 2 Plague Marine fire teams and that's just your whole kill team. It's going to be 5 Plague Marines. You're only going to be able to take 2 of those 3 of the gunner, heavy gunner, and fighter. So this is really going to affect the way that you approach list building, whether or not you want to go heavy into shooting or whether or not you want to go heavy into combat, where you're going to have the champion and this fighter who can really threaten in close combat. So basically, it's reading different situations in the list building stage. So let's take a look at the models themselves, because oh, and also before I do that, let's take a look at what the champion can take. He can go Bolt Pistol, Bolt Gunner, Plasma. Spoiler alert, you should almost always be taking the Plasma. It is amazing. I know it's just a pistol. I know it's got 6-inch range. It's really good. It's very good. And then you can take a Plague Knife, Plague Sword, or Power Fist. The Plague Sword's strong, but the Power Fist is amazing. It's damage 5/7 with like brutal. You're going to want to take that a lot of time. Let's get into the data sheet itself. So first thing you're going to notice, 2 circle. Yeah, they're 4-inch movement. That's not very fast. However, it's easy to underestimate the speed of a 2-circle Plague Marine because 2-circle, I mean, you see it on a Poxwalker or a Plague Bearer or some other model with 2-circle. I know there's more. But the difference here is that 3 APL, in practicality, they're not that slow. Yes, they're going to be slower than your normal Marine, but they're always going to be able to move, dash, and do something else, which I think is a really big benefactor to their mobility. Yep, they're not the fastest, but don't underestimate how quickly you're actually going to be able to move up the board while doing things. So, Bolt Gun, Plague Knife, this is just what the basic loadout is always going to be. Bolt Gun is what you'd expect. It's a Bolt Gun. Plague Knife, the problem here, I mean, it's 3/5, which is, it's worse than a Chainsword because Chainswords are 4/5. The big problem here is you only get 3 attacks. So a basic Plague Marine, you cannot really rely on them to put out a lot of damage in close combat, which I think is a definite weakness for this team. I mean, this 3 right here, if this was just 4, it would be a different story. But this compounded with the fact that the normal damage is 3 instead of 4, that's a big problem. Huge thing here, this is the biggest part about Plague Marines, disgustingly resilient. whenever you would lose a wound, you roll a d6, and on a 5-up, you don't lose the wound. And on top of that, they can't be injured. So yeah, 2 circles sucks, but you're never going to have to worry about having 2-inch movement. Like I know Necrons can, once they get injured, they can drop down to 2-inch movement, and that is just debilitating. You don't have to worry about that with your Plague Marines. These guys do not get injured because they have Disgustingly Resilient. But this 5-up Feel No Pain is gigantic. First of all, they've got a 3-up save, which means that in shooting, they are very resilient. They've got 12 wounds, so it's going to take a while to kill them. And with a 5-up Feel No Pain, you are statistically going to be saving 1/3 of the damage that you're taking. So practically speaking, a Plague Marine, you're going to need to do about 16 wounds of damage to them on average to kill them. That is really big. I mean, that's a huge deal. They're always at, I mean, obviously you can't have, you're always going to have to at least do 12 to them. Like, that's assuming they fail all their Feel No Pains, which is unlikely. But on average, 16, sometimes the variance is going to swing and it's going to be less, but sometimes it might be more too. But the fact is, even with just 12 wounds and a 3-up save, they are very durable. This Disgustingly Resilient plays a huge role because, I mean, when you think about it, it's every time you make one of these Feel No Pains, that's an extra wound that your opponent needed to do to kill you. You make one Feel No Pain, suddenly you got 13 wounds. Think of it that way. And it can be very difficult to get these models off of the board. And obviously Disgustingly Resilient, the things I'm talking about, the 3-up save, 12 wounds, all the Plague Marines have this. This is the same across pretty much everything. So let's go down to the Gunner. Melting Gun, we already know what this is. It's amazing. 6-inch range, but if you can actually get in there, it is fantastic. My favorite, though, is the Plasma Gun. 5-6 damage, AP 1 if you want to overcharge, AP 2. And overcharging isn't as scary for a Plague Marine as it is for a normal Marine because you take those mortal wounds and you at least get the 3 5-up Feel No Pains if you roll the 1 and suffer the hot damage, I guess you'd call it. Yeah, Plasma is so good. If you're only going to be taking 1 gunner, you always want to go Plasma. You don't want to go the heavy gunner with anything. There's the Plague Belcher as well, but I'm personally not very high on Flamers, 6-inch range weapons, especially when you have 2-circle movement. Even with the move dash, this is not the most reliable. Let's look at the Heavy Gunner. Heavy Gunner can take the Blight Launcher or the Plague Spewer. Plague Spewer is basically the same as the Plague Belcher. It's just got 1 extra shot. Still not into it. The Blight Launcher it's a strong weapon. 4 shots, hitting on 3s, 4/6, AP 1. But you're gonna notice it is objectively worse than a Plasma. A Plasma not overcharge is 1 more damage, still AP 1. It's the same but better. And then with the option to supercharge it to get AP 2. So this means that if you're going to take a Blight Launcher, it's going to mean that you already have a Plasma. And the Blight Launcher is there as like your second gunner. It's not quite as good as a Plasma, but it's still really strong with AP 1, damage 4/6. Not something to scoff at, but it's like your second gunner if you're not running a fighter, essentially. Speaking of which, the fighter has all these cool weapons. I went over the options earlier. My favorite is the Bubonic Axe and Mace of Contagion because you can choose on the fly which of these you want. I personally don't like the Plague Cleaver because I think hitting on 4s is it's a little too swingy for me in this game. The Flail is certainly interesting. It's got that Reap 2. I can see it being an option. My favorite still, though, is the Bubonic Axe. It's got that 4/6 damage with Rending. You can also have the Mace if you want it with that stun on 4/5. Really strong model. They have 5 attacks in melee, so right off the bat, this is a very, very good operative to have on your team, especially if you think that melee is going to be the way to go. And then there's the Iconbearer. It's got the normal Iconbearer ability, so on an objective, it counts as having APL 4. That's fantastic. And then the Icon of Decay, when you activate this, it's basically Plague Marines within 3 inches of this model get to reroll Disgustingly Resilient rolls of 1 and 2, which is very good. And you will never not run this model because if you look, it is the same as a regular Plague Marine. It's got a bolt gun and a Plague Knife. The only difference is it also has the icon. Even if you're never getting to use the icon in a game, it's still worth it to take this because you never know, right? You're not giving up anything to take an Iconbearer. And then you have the Champion, who, I mean, he's got the 13th wound. That's awesome. The Plasma Pistol is just fantastic. It is really strong. Even with 6-inch range, it hits like a truck. No reason to ever take a Bolt Pistol. And I mean, I guess you could argue the Bolt Gun for the infinite range, but personally, You give this guy a power fist, he wants to be up close anyway, and having that plasma pistol just really reinforces that idea. So give him that power fist, go to town. The Plague Sword's an option because it hits on 2s, but I mean, I can't imagine passing on the power fist. It is really, really good. They've got some great strategic ploys. Almost all of their strategic ploys seem to revolve around the Plague Marines if you pay attention, with the exception of Contagion, which the Poxwalkers can benefit from that. But I mean, look, Malicious Volleys, this is shoot twice with bolt guns. Plague Marines, obviously. This is fight twice, Hateful Assault. This only affects Plague Marines. Affluent Demise, not an amazing stratagem. When you die, you do D3 mortal wounds to nearby enemies. But again, it's only Plague Marines. Revolting Durability, Bubonic Astartes, Plague Marines. And this one's really good. You change a crit into a normal hit. It's not as good as some other ones, like I know the Greenskins have just a scratch, where they just get rid of a hit die that their opponent has. This changes a crit into a normal, which can save your life sometimes. So keep this in mind always. And then there's Dig In, which if you can find a situation for it, I mean, having 4 defense die is fantastic. It makes them more durable than they already are, basically. And then their equipment doesn't blow me away. Crack grenades are certainly interesting. I love the Plague Bell, though. I think that you should always be considering the Plague Bell, because giving them that extra circle of movement, even if it's just for 1 turn, can be really huge. Yeah, there's the Nurgling as well. Just because there aren't a lot of amazing options here on the equipment for the Plague Marines, I think that the Plague Bell and the Nurgling are 2 things that you're going to see very often on these 5 Plague Marine kill teams. The Filth Sensor is somewhat interesting if you plan on using Contagion. It only works for 1 model, so it isn't like mind-blowing, but it's an option. I don't love Virulent Rounds, but it's only 1 equipment point, so there's a lot of situations where you're just going to be filling out your slots with this. I do like Mephitic Toxin in situations where you're up against 8 wound models, because then suddenly 2 hits, even without a crit, is doing 8 damage, and even 9 wound models, because you're critting on 5, and then that second normal hit that you get through would be doing, bringing it up to 9 damage. So I definitely see the use for Mephitic Toxin against certain brackets of wounds. Outside of that, though, I mean, I think that Plague Marines have a lot of potential as their own kill team. I mean, I know obviously you're going to see them a lot in terms of like the Plague Marine fire team and the Poxwalker fire team kind of supplementing each other. But yeah, I mean, definitely give Plague Marines a consideration as far as the elite, the 5 model kill team goes, because they are extremely durable. Like I said, 16 wounds on average. Think of them like that, because that's hard to deal with. Try not to rely too much on their melee. Know when to go double gunner and when to go plasma fighter, because that can be quite the swing. Anyway, I hope you guys have really enjoyed listening to this fire team breakdown. I'm going to keep doing these, and I'm going to keep taking nominations from Patreon, so if you're already a patron, pay attention to those posts, because I am taking nominations from all of you guys and picking them kind of semi-randomly. If there's one that's getting a little bit more attention, then I'll go that direction. But yeah, so thank you to Alec for nominating this. Thank you to you guys for watching. If you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe to us. It helps us out so much, and it's just 1 click. It takes no effort. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for listening.